everybody, and welcome to Talking with Tatum. I'm your host, Barry Tatum, and today we are chatting with Jamie Farough. She's the Wilson County School Board Chair and Zone 7 representative. We're going to talk about issues involving school growth, security, and teacher recruitment, and perhaps some other issues. But first, we'd like to know a little bit about you. Ms. Farough, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you haven't been on our program before.
I have not.
We've had Director Luttrell and also Director Hutto from the other school systems, Lebanon Special School District. But I thought it would be interesting to have somebody that kind of looks at the big picture and kind of the long-range version as opposed to day-to-day problems. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about you, where you grew up, and career, education, and your family.
Okay. Well, I'm from here. I've lived in the same 10 miles my whole life, which is in Legardo. I have two daughters.
Country.
Yes. I have two daughters. One recently graduated from Wilson County Schools, and one is a junior. I am a nurse. My career is a nurse. I'm not hands-on anymore, but I've been in healthcare since I graduated high school. I'm actually in litigation nursing now, so I see some interesting trends with legal terminology and things that I also apply to the school board.
That's a term I'm not familiar with. What is a litigation nursing?
So litigation nursing is expert testimony and injury cases when we kind of project out cost over the course of a lifetime of someone that's been injured and different things along that course.
Talking about long-term care needs of a person.
Long-term care needs, yeah. Okay. Medical equipment, things like that.
But your background or training is as a registered nurse.
Right, so I draw off my expertise from that.
And how long were you in the direct hands-on registered nursing field?
Including my time as a tech, I would say 20 years.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry to interrupt you. I just
okay.
not heard the term litigation nursing before.
Yeah. Let's see. I attended all the schools that I currently, well, I don't want to say all the schools I currently represent, but I attended the schools that I currently represent: West Elementary, West Wilson Middle School, which was Mount Juliet Middle School then, or junior high, and Mount Juliet High School. And that's about it.
Well, you've been on the school board for, this is, I believe, your second term?
This is my second term. I was just reelected.
So you've got one term under your belt, and it's a 4-year term. But anytime a person makes a decision to say, I want to serve in a public capacity in an elected office, that's not something you do lightly.
No, and I'm telling you, that was a crash course first term. I mean, we had a tornado take out a couple of our schools, a pandemic shut down the country, including our schools. We had a new director, a new CFO. Gosh, there's things I'm not thinking of right now. We looked at possible vouchers, rejecting federal funds. I mean, there were so many big issues that weren't on the table when I first decided to run, and the most controversial issue at that time was school calendars, which will be presented at the next school board meeting, by the way, because I'm getting lots of emails about that.
Well, when you did decide to run, I guess 5 years ago maybe, what was the school calendar the issue that prompted your concern at that time?
No, actually the issue that prompted my decision to really get involved was transportation, and the fact that I had to leave bedside nursing because the 2 days a week that I worked in the hospital, I couldn't get my kids to school. And so we have made significant improvements in that, and part of it, you just can't make bus drivers work for us. So we work on retention and attracting new drivers to us, and COVID really kind of set us back, but we look at creative solutions like wave routes and things like that. And most recently, we've made the decision that if at all possible, we're not going to down a route, even if it's late. But our board and our director feel strongly that every student deserves a way to school.
And when you said you couldn't get your kids to school, the bus service was available or not?
So our routes were being canceled so frequently. Nurses work 12-hour shifts, so They have to be at school or at work. At my position, I had to be there at 6:45 in the morning, so I couldn't take my kids to school. So if the bus didn't run, my kids just couldn't go to school. You can't leave the hospital to go take your kids to school. That's patient abandonment.
Right.
So that was just one of those situations. There wasn't anything else but for me to find another job.
But
And I know there's lots of parents that have dealt with that. They've called me.
But it was significant enough an issue, and certainly serious enough, that said, you know, something needs to be done about this problem, and I'm going to try to do
Exactly.
something about it.
And I really hope to be able to say at the end of my first term, this is fixed, but that's just going to be an issue that we just keep tackling and keep finding ways to improve. And that's the thing. There's always room for improvement. We're never going to be able to say we're perfect,
Right.
but to be able to look back and say we're better than we were, and we're better than we were, and to continue to improve.
Well, you mentioned some of those issues that you could never have anticipated running for office, a tornado, the pandemic. You might have been able to anticipate there was going to be a change in directors, but
Yeah.
the process of finding the person, the qualified person who's the right fit for your school district, that's a big endeavor.
It is a big endeavor. And, you know, we made the decision to do that in-house as much as possible, and I appreciate our HR department for putting in the extra work. It saved our taxpayers quite a bit of money by doing it that way, by doing the process in-house. But we had applicants from across the country, and I think that we found the perfect fit, quite honestly.
And Mr. Luttrell's kind of got his sea legs here in Wilson County, starting
He
out as a
sure
teacher
has,
here,
yeah.
and principal through the ranks.
Very invested in the community.
As far as what the school board does, I mean, people typically don't have interaction with the school board member or maybe a school board meeting. Their contact is with the principal, assistant principal, guidance counselor, and the teacher in the classroom.
I would say most of the time, yeah.
If you can, kind of, for the uninformed like myself and perhaps some others, can you kind of sum up the distinction between what the role of the administration is versus the role of the school board?
Sure. So the school board's role is actually set in state law, and that is to run the school district through policy. So a school board member doesn't have any authority over any individual employee other than Mr. Luttrell. The 7 of us, we have 7 board members, are Mr. Luttrell's boss. So not one of us, even me being chair, I don't tell Mr. Luttrell what to do. That comes from the direction of all 7 of us by a majority vote. Mr. Luttrell runs day-to-day operations, so any decisions that have to be made that day outside of contracts, things like that, that has to be voted on by the board. But under him, principals and teachers, like teachers run their classroom, principals run their school, and they have the authority to make decisions based on procedures put in place under a policy. So we approve policies, and those are supposed to be broad and just general direction of what we want to happen. And then Mr. Luttrell comes in under that and says, well, this is the procedure. This is how I'm going to make that happen. And then he gives that directive to the principals, and they pass it on down to the teachers. So when somebody has a complaint, they should first address the concern with the teacher and then escalate it up that chain of command. And it finally, you know, will come to a school board member. But that's typically how it should happen.
So if you do have an issue, whether it's school bus routes or zoning issues or safety issues that a child is having in school,
Right.
they should try to take it through the administration of that individual school.
Right.
But every citizen, every resident of the county does have a representative member on the school board.
They do. Unless it's a larger issue like, you know, school safety is something that we have really tackled. That was
Right.
that was my number one platform issue when I ran for re-election, and so we've got lots of feedback from the community on safety issues. That's not really something that they're going to address with the teacher if they feel that the whole district needs to adopt something.
Right.
So, you know, I heard lots of feedback specifically from people in law enforcement of things they wanted us to look at, and would pass that on to Mr. Luttrell, and he would vet things and bring them back to us. So specifically, the Pause on Patrol program.
Tell us a little bit about that. You say PAWS, P-A-W-S, not
Yes.
P-A-U-S-E.
Yeah,
So you're talking about a dog.
2 dogs.
2 dogs.
So they actually got an award this morning or this afternoon at the Mount Juliet Chamber luncheon. So Pause on Patrol, we're looking at implementing layers of security. And so this is just one layer in many. And so it is 2 dogs that are trained to sniff out guns. And so they each have a sheriff's deputy that's their handler, and they don't follow any specific pattern as far as which school they show up at, and they just work throughout the day. An added benefit of that is, Mr. Luttrell mentioned this earlier, the behavior that we've seen in students since COVID is significant, like more behavioral issues.
In a bad way.
In a bad way. And so seeing those students react to the dogs has been a positive thing. I mean, as a nurse, I can tell you pet therapy is a thing, and it's a good thing.
They have a calming influence.
They do. So we're not using it in that way, but it's been an added benefit. And so even as a treat, if this class has met this goal, they'll get a visit from Xander and Xena. That's their names, and it's Officer McPeak and Officer Vance that are their handlers. And this program, Lebanon Special had it first, and we borrowed one of their dogs when we had a firework that went off in one of our schools. And so the first day, we couldn't figure out who did it. The second day that it happened, we borrowed their dog, and the dog went straight to the individual who did this.
So the dog ratted them out.
The dog ratted them out. So they're sweet. They're 20 months old, and so you will see them be very rambunctious sometimes, but they're good dogs.
Now, is that something that comes out of the budget of the school board, or is that something that's provided by the sheriff's department?
So Wilson County was the first school district in Tennessee to have an SRO in every school.
Right.
This is something on top of that. So we paid for the dogs, we paid for the training for the officers, and I would like to see more eventually maybe, but 2 was what we could start with.
And there are other technology things. One of the statistics that I've heard recently is that since Columbine, shooting back in 1999 in Colorado, that there have been 0 student fatalities when students have hidden in place behind a locked classroom door. And I heard that from a law enforcement official. I haven't double-checked that data, of course, but it makes sense with the other tragedies. What other steps have been discussed in the school board system about developing layers of protection for students?
So I am very cautious on what I disclose, just because if everybody knows our safety plan, there is no safety plan.
Right.
But there are things that we've talked about publicly that I don't mind sharing.
I'm talking about things that are visible that as you drive by, you say, that's a good idea.
We have technological things, but we also have this year trialed weapons detection. We have put, or in the process of putting, film on lower doors and windows of schools that are not our new builds. Our new builds come with shatterproof windows and doors, but because of our older schools, we've just purchased a film that can go on those on a different route, but still safety. We have our new builds all have a tornado shelter in them. So those are a few of the things that I feel like I can talk about.
Okay. Other issues that are facing the school system, we're in a big growth uptick right now. And as we've seen the population increase, see rooftops increase, that necessarily means more families, more kids, and more kids to educate. What has been the growth pattern or the struggles that you've seen as, and when I say you, I mean collectively as the board, about how to keep up with the growth patterns in Wilson County?
In the past, I'd say three years, we have increased in student number almost the size of an elementary school each year. We can't build that fast. It takes about 18 to 24 months to build a school, weather dependent.
You're saying in each year you've added enough students that would fill up a typical elementary school.
Yep.
Okay.
So about 18 to 24 months to build a school. And so in the past couple of years, we've remodeled Mount Juliet Middle. We've rebuilt West Wilson Middle and Stoner Creek. Lagardo Elementary is slated to open in fall of 2025. We are about to break ground on the new Central Pike Elementary. We've got land on Golden Bear that will fit 1, possibly 2 schools. We've got land for Lagardo Middle, and we're starting to look for land for Lagardo High School. Probably the day that I was sworn in, we did the ribbon cutting for Green Hill High School, and I didn't think we'd need another high school for a while, but we're getting there, and we're getting there soon. So, needing the space, but also needing the teachers. They estimate, there's a more specific calculation, but approximately for every rooftop, you calculate 1.5 students. And so that kind of gives you an idea when you see these developments popping up, for every house, 1.5 students. So that's fills up quickly. Like in Zone 7, Spence Creek, it's a very large neighborhood, and
Off
that's
of Highway 109. Right.
yeah, it's a very large neighborhood, and that's a good portion of the new elementary school. So we just have to be able to accommodate those students, because when they're in our county, we have to educate them. So that leads to the next issue. You've got less and less people choosing to go into education. So growing our own teachers and incentivizing teachers to come work for Wilson County schools and retaining the teachers that we have. So in the past 3 years, we've raised teacher pay 15%. We have put our teachers and our classified staff on new pay scales with automatic step increases. We've looked at benefits. One specific thing is we continue to look at family coverage. We've added fertility coverage, was something that was requested a lot. I'm sure there's other things that I'm forgetting, but we're looking at all these different mental health coverage, especially coming out of the pandemic, looking at all these different things that might attract and recruit different pathways to getting their licensure. I know we've got a program at Lebanon. A couple of the other high schools have it, like Future Teachers of America is what we had when I was growing up. So programs like that, trying to encourage high school students to enter education. And so that's another challenge with growth.
Well, one of the things I've noticed with educators, both the ones I had in school and the ones that I've known professionally, is, and to the same extent in nursing, you don't get into that career field with the idea, oh, this is a easy path to riches. You really have to have a servant's heart to do something like that, a desire to share and give something back to hopefully improve the life of someone else. So that's a big factor in teaching. Not everyone is cut out for that.
Right.
What is the struggle? It's not just money.
It's not.
About identifying and targeting those folks, and Wilson County Schools is a great place to come if you're a person considering education in college.
And that's where the problem comes in for us, and so many fewer individuals entering the profession is student behavior is the number one reason that we're seeing that teachers are leaving the profession.
Yes. Leaving
and not going into the profession. And there are things that we can do, holding students accountable and suspending and there's a fine line when it comes to that, looking at a student's IEP and not depriving them of their right to their education. But we've looked at more things like virtual school instead of being in the classroom, if that's necessary, just because we have to protect our staff. But that's been kind of what we've identified, and that's the same with bus drivers, student behavior. And so it's really parents, we need our parents to work with us on that.
One of the things that I've heard about is it sounds like Wilson County is beginning to experience or see firsthand the results of what larger school systems have been dealing with, such as in Davidson County, Nashville, Shelby County, Memphis, and other large urban areas, is about the size and the behaviors of the young people that are involved.
Well, we are 200 students shy of 21,000 students.
Okay.
So we are a large school district.
And it doesn't seem like, at least from the construction trucks going up and down the road and the subdivision, it's not slowing down.
A lot of the behavior issues, too, are exacerbated by social media.
Right.
Whether it's, rumors spreading, like some of the threats that we've had recently, or instances between students. So we do have an event coming up. I can get you the exact date. I've been a big advocate of bringing this back because we had done it in past years. We did it 2 or 3 times where the TBI comes to educate just parents. Students are not allowed in the room. I've gone every time, and I learned something new every time. And it's actually quite terrifying, some of the things that students can get into, some of the methods that individuals will use to get to your child, some of the ways
You're talking about predators and sex trafficking.
Yes, some of the ways that
Pedophiles.
kids hide these things on their phones that might be as simple as a calculator app. So it's very terrifying. So I encourage everybody to go and just be aware.
And those are free,
It's free,
open to adults.
open to Wilson County.
And you're,
So,
and you're
Lebanon
really
Special too.
focusing on parents and grandparents and other people
Absolutely.
who have custody of school-age children.
Absolutely. We encourage everybody to attend. It's Wilson County Schools and Lebanon Special doing this. So it'll be extremely informative.
And this, I believe it's going to be at the old Lebanon High School where the central office is up on Harding Drive in Lebanon at
Yes,
the
sir.
auditorium. I'm really glad to hear that y'all are doing that. I went to one of those a couple of years ago, and I'm not the most technologically savvy person in
Yeah.
the world, but I was shocked and scared, frankly,
Yeah.
to where I let my son and daughter-in-law know, hey,
It's
y'all
eye-opening.
need to watch what's going on with the kids, because the smartphones are just, they're everywhere.
Well, and just social media, as soon as a parent, and I'm speaking for myself too, like I have a 16-year-old, as soon as I learn about one social media and kind of vet it, there's a new one
It's
out.
old news.
Right, and so it turns over so quickly, and these kids are so immersed in it, they hear it all day from their friends, and I mean, just parents need to stay current and understand what the risks are, and there are monitoring softwares out there. There's Bark and Safer Kid and things like that might meet a parent's needs. I've used some of those softwares before, and I feel like, honestly, I feel like to parent in today's age, that is a necessity. So,
Well, there was a time, at least when I was growing up, you knew who your parents knew who your friends were and knew who their folks were.
right.
And you had some idea. That's not as prevalent anymore. And in some cases, I've seen it where they don't really even care. They don't know anything other than the kid's nickname. They couldn't tell you where they live. They just know that they're a friend of their son or daughter, and they just let them go over to that house, which is a terrifying prospect if you're really concerned. There is what can we do, or what can people in your position, the school boards, do to, I don't know if it's reestablish that idea of personal responsibility, or educate, re-engage parents in involvement in their kids' lives?
It's a good question. That's something that I
Thank
try.
you. I try to
Yeah.
ask good questions.
I mean, that's something I've tried to do by staying in contact with parents, like through, my page for school board is a Facebook page, because I think that's how most parents communicate now. Like, we've got the parents page on Facebook that's not run by Wilson County Schools, but there's about 17,000 members, and they're parents of Wilson County students. So I chose for my school board page to be on Facebook, and I try to do updates there and be available. And I've spoken directly to parents in some of my posts about some of these issues, and just try to make sure that we're telling this story and offering things like this TBI event. And I'm always open to ideas too.
Okay. Well, I've got some we'll talk about that. One of the things about school safety, we recently had a teen court meeting, and I asked the participants in the teen court program, because they're where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
I said, can y'all come up with any ideas that you think would be beneficial in the event of a school shooter or an emergency? What would you do? Because as adults, we may overlook something that is so simple that, a person may have an idea. You think, it may not be the perfect thing, but it's the start of something that could be beneficial. But also, not only that, it gives the kids a buy-in to their own safety.
Right.
They're thinking in real terms of what do I do if or when this happens, as opposed to looking to someone else for guidance.
These kids really have some serious emotional thoughts about
Yeah.
these issues. I mean, I've talked to my own daughters about it, and it's hard. Especially, we trialed that weapons detection system, and you talk about some growth pains with that. But when you talk to the kids about starting a program like that, they've got some great insight. And so the weapons detection, one of the things was we were going to have to get rid of binders. The 3-ring binders kept setting it off. So maybe bringing back lockers, which kids don't use now.
Yeah.
And you leave your 3-ring binders there. And there were some parents that really didn't like that idea, but the ultimate goal is safety. And
Yeah.
so there's just going to have to be some changes made, and people are going to have to adjust to some things, because the goal of what we're trying to do here is keep everybody safe, and that's the most important. So
All right.
that's...
Well, as we're winding up our time here, we've covered several topics on this. Is there anything else that you'd like to address or talk about with from the school board perspective about maybe what you would like to see Wilson County Schools look in 5 or 10 years?
I would like to see us continue on this path to address the real issues, like the transportation, and you know, we've got all of our reward schools, and we're just doing really good things in Wilson County schools, and I want that story to get out. I know lots of times, especially here recently, there's been a lot of controversy about public schools, but every child deserves an education, and public schools provide that, and we do it well.
Right.
And that story needs to be told more, and we need to get that out better. And so to continue to see students, you know, I often wonder who is the kid sitting in Mount Juliet High School right now that's going to be the future board chair. Like, to see those kids grow up and give back to the community, I'm excited to see that happen. So,
And another thing I always like to ask our guests, but thank you for being with us, is what are some words of wisdom or mantras, mottos, that words of advice you would like to share with somebody who is watching? Maybe it is that student that's sitting in Mount Juliet High School or Mount Juliet Middle, and somehow their career path puts them in a position to be school board chair or juvenile court judge. Who knows? What would you like to share with them?
follow your passions. You know, follow your passions, and speak up when you see something that needs to be spoken up for. So,
All right.
okay.
Very good. Well, because of that good answer, for being a guest, we have a parting gift with you. It's
Thank
a
you.
little commemorative cup with a mouse pad and a screen cleaner, and I don't know, there may be a new car in the bottom for all I know. But again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, thanks you for joining and watching Talkin with Tatum as we spoke here with Jamie Farough, the Wilson County School Board Chair. And be sure and keep your eye peeled for that program that's going to be presented at the central office. It's free to the public. And if you have a school-age child, particularly one who has social media access, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to try to get to that and be aware and be informed about what our kids are facing. We'll see you next time on Talkin with Tatum.